just starting.
I think it's going to be a dampening impact. I would be surprised that the numbers would come up. I think it would dampen up the next 2-3 months.
Iowans may be getting more door knocks and phone calls lately from businesses and individuals offering to help out with lawn care, tree trimming, and cleanup work. While many of them may be legitimate, Bess Ellenson with the Better Business Bureau says there are plenty of scammers out there looking to take advantage of you in the spring season.
We always recommend that people get everything that is supposed to be done in writing. So if something happens where you don't get the work that you want done, the work that they did falls through, then you have a little more grounds to fight.
Ellenson says one test of a company's legitimacy is finding out if they're insured as required by the state. If they're not, the business could be shady and you could end up paying one way or the other.
Let's say you've hired somebody to come trim some trees and they're on a ladder and they fall and they don't have insurance. You could be liable for that. You could be liable for their injuries.
She recommends getting multiple quotes for any job you want done and always bring the company out to your property in person to get the most accurate estimates. Research prospective yard companies at bbb.org. An Iowa State University study explores the changing attitudes of Iowa voters in recent presidential elections. Ann Oberhauser, an ISU professor of sociology and director of women's and gender studies, says there was a big shift between the majority of Iowa voters picking Democrat Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012 to backing Republican Donald Trump in 2016.
We were interested in kind of more local and county level aspects of that, and we kind of tuned in on rurality as an explanatory factor, race, ethnicity as also explanatory, and some other social indicators such as education.
Oberhauser says it's curious when so many rural, predominantly white counties that supported Obama for 2 straight election cycles made a dramatic shift to get behind Trump.
Iowa is becoming much more diverse in its population, particularly in urban areas and larger populated areas, but also in some of these rural areas. So I think as the demographics change in the state, we might begin to see some more shift in some of these attitudes and looking ahead to 2020.
The study is being published in the Sociological Quarterly. I'm Alex Benzgal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 60. Northwesterly winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Lows dip down to about 43. Tonight, cloudy skies. Cloudy skies again. Tomorrow, scattered thunderstorms likely. High of 51. Chance for scattered rain showers Wednesday and Thursday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 63.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. May corn up 3/4 at $3.52. July up a half a penny at $3.61 3/4. September up a half a cent at $3.70, and December up a half a penny at $3.81 1/4. May soybeans down 6 1/4 to $8.47 1/2. July down 6 1/4 at $8.60 3/4. August down 6 1/2 at $8.66 3/4. November down 7 to $8.80 3/4. May wheat closed down 8 1/4 at $4.26 3/4. Soybean meal down $2.70 a ton at $2.97.20. April live cattle up 22 at $124.77. June down 25 to $114.80. May feedered cattle down 55 at $143.70.
Right, just hang on about 3 minutes, or you can call back.
$151.07. Lean hogs down 222 to $84.77. June down 70 to $88.05. I'm Dwayne Murley.
While some diets encourage you to choose uncured bacon when grocery shopping, it's not actually any healthier for you. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Uncured bacon is typically thought of as being free of nitrates and nitrites. But the truth is it does have nitrates, and in some cases at higher levels than those found in cured meats. Nitrates and nitrites are compounds added to preserve or add flavor to processed foods. And a package that says uncured bacon is actually cured. It's just cured with a nitrite derived from vegetables or fruits high in nitrates, like celery or beets, that can be easily converted to a nitrite. Cured bacon is preserved with sodium or potassium nitrites. So is uncured bacon better for you? No, it's not. A nitrite has the same implications whether it's derived from a vegetable or not. And nitrites that come from sodium or potassium are regulated, but nitrites from vegetables are not, which is why they sometimes are higher. But aren't there reports that nitrites are bad for you and cause certain cancers? A lot of research has been done to show that there is not an association between the two. The bottom line is that nitrites occur naturally in many foods, and nitrites that are added as a preservative are regulated. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Good morning, Uglyville!
Every ugly doll is unique.
I'm Moxie.
Bubbo.
Wade.
Those close to me call me Slick Dog.
Which is not his name.
And every child is too.
He can be pretty lovable.
That's why when you travel, you should make sure your child is in the right seat for their age and size.
That sounds pretty great to me.
Keep them safe by visiting nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Isn't that right, gibberish cat?
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And now, a quick comparison from Grasshopper. When a client calls, what do you want them to hear? Your personal voicemail?
Hey, you've reached Greg's cell phone. I'm away right now, obviously. Leave a message and maybe I'll get back to you.
Or something a little more buttoned up, courtesy of Grasshopper.
Thanks for calling Green Landscaping. To make an appointment, dial 1. For billing, dial 2. To speak with Greg Smith, dial
There's
3.
no contest. Put your best voice forward with Grasshopper, the virtual phone system for small business. Try it free at grasshopper.com.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, that's right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's my great pleasure to welcome back to the program once again the president of the Iowa Corn Growers, Kurt Mather. How you doing, Kurt?
Doing good. It's nice and sunny down here.
Yeah. You running the tractor still, or are you waiting on top of the hill?
I'm still on top of the hill.
That's probably a good place to be if we're going to do this. I do want to ask you about 2018. Was it a good year for you?
Oh, yeah. It was a good year. We had a great crop. The markets weren't the best, but that's okay. We had some opportunities to sell, and we had enough bushels that it worked out.
We just had our farm market guy on just a minute ago, given the grain prices. What is the price of corn today? You have any idea?
Well, in my area, it's about $3.60.
$3.60
cash.
Yeah. All right. Are you making any money at $3.60?
Some people are, and some people are losing money.
Well, why is that?
It all depends on your expenses. If you got your land paid for and your machinery paid for and you're not in debt, you're doing okay. But if you're in debt much or something, got big expenses, you're not in deep trouble.
Well, I was going to say that's it right there, the debt load. I do know some guys that got all that paid for, by the way.
Yeah.
But they're kind of the top of the heap guys. A lot of guys carry debt. They rent.
Well, yeah, it takes a while to get there. If you're young, there's no way you're going to be there yet. It's the older guys, that got their land paid for. They're in the driver's seat right now.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of guys bought into that too. Well, we got to get more acres, and they get that cash rent thing going on, and they get upside down on that pretty fast. If you're sharecropping, you're doing okay down there.
Yeah, but it's easy to make to be hard on them guys. But if you're going to farm, you do need some ground, and it takes a lot of money to farm, so you do need to borrow some money. So it's easy to be hard on them, but I can understand their position too.
Well, if I sounded like I was trying to be hard on them, I wasn't.
No.
I was just saying that we lost enough farmers over the last several years.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see too many more losses because of low grain prices, because of the doggone trade deal.
The trade deals. It's not the government jobs to make a market, but it's okay for the government to allow us to make a demand market for corn. And we need the trade deals so that we can do that.
Kurt, I don't know if I told you this or not. I don't think I did, but one of the reasons I started talking with farmers a lot, like you and others who are pork producers. I mean, everybody's farmers, but a guy came in here a while ago and he told me something that sat me back in my chair. He said, even young people, by young people, he was talking the under 35 crowd. young people in small towns in Iowa don't know how they got food on their plate. They don't understand what's happening out on the farm. They don't know what it means to work on a farm or anything about a farm. So when somebody comes along and yells something like pink slime or GMO, they get all scared about it, you know. And
that's true.
And they get all concerned about it. Now, if somebody was an urban person living in some big city somewhere, I'd understand that. But out here in Iowa, and I guess I'm just getting old, Kurt, for one thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard, but on the other hand, you know, one of the things I like about the Corn Growers Association is they try to do a lot of public policy work and a lot of attitude changes for that. A good example is just like Anita and myself. We farm and we grow a family, and we're proud to grow that family on the farm. You know, you build a work ethic, and you're proud of it, and you're proud of the work that you do. And they grow up and they become successful, and then they can give back to the communities that they're in. The small towns, these small towns are in trouble, and they need people to donate time and things for them. And that's one of the things I like about the corn growers. They encourage all that.
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad to see a lot of farm groups doing that, including, of course, the Iowa Corn Growers Association. And I know a lot of guys in the corn growers, and they're very much attuned to that whole ethos of supporting the area that you're in, and they don't want to see the towns that they grew up in or grew up around die. We've seen a lot of
one of the things, you know, one of my favorite topics is corn. I like to talk about corn. I'm proud of growing corn. I'm proud of how we grow corn. You know, it's an environmental, sustainable method and everything, and I'm proud of that. And it always amazes me that people that don't want to join corn growers don't seem to be proud of what they do. And I think everybody in agriculture should be proud of what they do, no matter what they do, whether it's corn growers or soybeans or cattlemen or whatever. They should join their association and let people know that they're proud of what they do and how they do it.
Well, I don't know why anybody would be ashamed of what they do or not proud of what they do. That's kind of
No, I agree. Yeah, they're in the wrong business if they are.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's you're in a small business, and it's up to you whether you succeed or not, or the work gets done or whatever. So if you'd have to have, I would think, a little bit of self-pride and motivation to get out there and get the job done. Yeah, if you're definitely in the wrong business. If you, that's pretty wild. That is. But where do you take your grain? Do you take it into Logan? Is there an elevator there that you take it to, or you store it on the farm?
We're pretty lucky. We're not far from a Cargill at Blair, which is kind of like your one up at Fort Dodge.
Sure, that's right.
And then we got Bartlett and Council Bluffs. They sell their corn straight into Mexico on the rails. And then we got Sire, an ethanol plant, and we got a Denison and an ethanol plant right there. And then there's a new one at Atlantic that's we haven't taken. It's a little bit further away, so we haven't taken corn there, but we could if we wanted to. So we really have a great market.
You know, in the early 90s, I remember corn was about $1.80 a bushel.
Yeah.
And then ethanol came along, and it really saved a lot of people, and it saved the corn market a lot. So ethanol is so important to corn production and to corn farmers, which practically every farmer in the state of Iowa has got to have corn, I would think. So ethanol and it is so important. It's good to hear that the Chinese are interested in importing our ethanol.
Yeah, you're right. Ethanol has just changed the corn market. I can remember, before the ethanol market, it was like you said, corn was in the $1 to $2 range. And the ethanol just really increased the demand. Plus, we still got the distiller's grain for feed. It's just a really good product.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a colleague of yours, Bob Quinn. You probably know him.
I do.
He says that when it comes to agriculture, Iowa is the center of the world. And he's correct. In corn, we're number one. In soybeans, we're 1 or 2. In egg production, we're number 1. And in ethanol, we're by far the number 1. So we make more ethanol in Iowa than any other state in America, in the world,
Bob and some of those guys got something started that I think I want to try to do here. He got reports from farmers in the field on their tractors. You're actually the first farmer I've talked to here recently that's actually in the field in his tractor.
Oh. Well, there's going to be a lot of them if the sun shines.
Oh yeah, I know that, but you know,
that's kind of fun.
Some of those guys, Lee. God, I shouldn't even said his name now because I know it. Lee. Oh, come on, man. Oh, I'm not going to try anymore. But yeah, Bob and some of those guys, they encourage farmers to call in and give a report, especially during harvest season, to see what they were seeing out there.
Yeah, well, they're agriculture guys. That's their job, and they do a good job of it. We really appreciate what they do for our industry. They get that opinion out there for people to hear.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Just like you're doing now, it's really helps us out.
No, it needs to be done. It absolutely needs to be done. Or there's a lot of forces out there. I don't like to dwell on this, but there's a lot of people who are opposed to agriculture, and there's so much ignorance out there. I've told this story several times. Some of my regular listeners are probably getting tired of it. But on my way down to the Farm Progress show last year, and not surprisingly, I listened to a lot of talk radio, and I have Sirius XM in my car. So I'm driving along, and there's a talk radio station, and there's 3 people on there, and they're young people, and they're broadcasting live from some large city out west. Maybe it was Seattle. I don't really remember. But somehow the subject of trade and corn and all these things came up, and a young woman asks, what do they do with all that grain out there? And a young man replied, well, I believe they feed it to their hogs. And she asked, well, what happens to the hogs then? Well, they butcher them. And she just went off into a rage. Oh my God, you're killing hogs in those terrible animal confinement buildings. And you're feeding them this grain. I had no idea that's where the grain was going. I think, lady, what planet do you live on? And I probably shouldn't have reacted that way because she does live in a much different area than I do. But I was just startled that there was that level of, ignorance, I guess, about. And I say ignorance not as an insult. If you're ignorant, you just haven't been taught. No, that's sad. You're right. A good comparison, is biotech. The GMOs. There's a lot of people that are against them, but they're so good for so many reasons. Scientifically, they're sound. Good for the environment, good for production, and a good comparison would be, vaccinations. A lot of people are against the measles vaccinations or whatever, and yet scientifically, there's a sound reason to take them. But there's still a group of people out there that don't want to take their vaccinations. And I'd say that's a good comparison. Well, I'm going to look this up for you here. But one of the leading authors, anti-GMO authors, I did a little work on him, and it turns out he has no background in science whatsoever.
I believe it.
But he does have a resume that includes a yogic flying instructor at Maharishi University in Fairfield, Iowa.
Oh, boy.
and before that, he was a ballroom dance instructor. And this guy is one of the gadflies of GMO production in our country. And I'm thinking, this guy's just, he's selling books right and left. He's discovered a way to make some good money by scaring people half to death. I'm not sure what he knows.
He makes an environmental issue that makes a headline, and then the headline sounds reasonable, so people just jump to that conclusion. Yeah, it's really sad.
It's that's another reason we're on the air with these shows that we do. Here we are in the middle of a cornfield, for God's sake, and people are saying these things, and it affects the livelihood of us all on. Based on nothing really but fear and craziness. And our guest is Kurt Mather. He is the president of the Iowa Corn Growers, and this portion of the program brought to you by the Iowa Corn Growers, and we're glad to have the corn growers on the air with us. What did you get any flooding in your area or not? We didn't get the problem that Southwest Iowa did. Are you too far north for those problems, or
the flood issues?
Yeah,
we're in the hills and a little bit further north, but we're not far from it. When we go to Omaha, we can see some of that problem, and it's sad. Well, them guys are in deep trouble.
Well, that's what it sounds like, and I hate to hear that.
Oh, and Fremont County, further south yet, is just everybody's in trouble. It's a flat county, and the water just covered them up. Boy, well, even the livestock people are having trouble.
One of our people here at the radio station's organize some relief for central Nebraska. She had a relative out there, and central
Good
Nebraska, I guess, is just a mess. I mean, they got flooding.
Oh yeah, the Platte River. I
Yeah.
mean, it's flat out there and it's so wide. Oh, it's a catastrophe.
Well, she did some good out there, I guess. Or some towns are actually surrounded. They couldn't get food and supplies in there, for God's sake. It was
Fremont, and that's not that far from us, really. It's only probably 50 miles from us here in Iowa.
Well, that's what I know. You said you were in the hills, and
Yeah.
I know where Logan
Yeah.
is, of course. But I wanted to ask you about that and see how it is. Are you in the hills there? Are you doing okay? I mean, you're dry and you're moving right along with your planter, and
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. We're in the hills, and one of our biggest concerns is erosion. So we got lots of terraces and we no-till and everything like that. But it's just a different set of problems than on the river bottom.
yeah. Well, it's kind of risky business down there anyway, I suppose.
Oh boy!
No matter how you
yeah.
slice it. But this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, along with Kurt Mather of the Iowa Corn Growers. Do you what kind of? I mean, do you have any predictions as to what's going to happen in the corn market here in the next several months?
Yeah, I'm really nervous about it. Yeah, the corn price almost always goes up in the spring because there's always a fear of dry weather coming or too much water in the spring or whatever. But I'm just really concerned about the market with that African swine fever. I mean, we're losing a lot of demand. We do have some ethanol policies that have hurt demand for ethanol, and there's just a lot of things that are headwinds for the corn market. I'm really concerned. We got a big carry out for both corn and beans. And so if we get in the field and get a lot of acres planted and have a good crop, the supply is going to get bigger. And I'm just really concerned about it. And normally, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead, please.
And normally I'm an optimist too much. I'm too optimistic, but I'm having trouble being that way this year.
Well, yeah, I just, again, and we started, this is why I kind of started out. We had such high hopes and everything all the ducks looked like they were in a row, and boy, kind of things went the other way pretty fast, starting with all these trade difficulties. And I'm really disappointed in that USMCA thing. And I shouldn't be, I suppose I'm too negative on some of these things, but because we are so dependent on what agriculture does in the state of Iowa. I mean, maybe in Des Moines they have those insurance companies that keeps their economy going, but still around here, I'll tell you how the ag sector goes. That's how we go in general.
And the reason trade is so important is because we grow way too much for our state, even for our country.
Right.
We have to export it. That's just a standard procedure that we need to have because we cannot use all the food that we grow here in America. God has made us the breadbasket of the world, and so we need to feed other places. That's what it comes down to.
And we do that. And there just needs to be more education, of course, on that GMO business. I mean, GMOs, as has been said by many people, save millions and millions of people from starving to death. And now all of a sudden, because of some folks that need to sell books, I guess, a lot of people are afraid of them or won't allow them in their country. It's just crazy.
In the long run, I think that science will win out, and people finally understand. There will always be a fringe that fight them. There always will be. There'll be some radicals out there, but the majority of the people will understand that they're good and they're scientifically sound, and I think they'll accept them pretty good. It may take a while, but I think we'll eventually get there.
All right, that's the good news. That's the optimistic. That's the
there you go.
No, that's the optimism we need, though. The truth and science will win out. My belief was shaken a little bit recently with that Monsanto nonsense. Monsanto was sued for over glyphosate. I mean, it's a fantasy.
That is a scary issue. It really is. We could get by without glyphosate, but it would be way more expensive.
We'd go back to walking beans, is what we do.
Yeah. And up in the hills, we no-till everything to save the soil and make it better, and it would make it so much harder not to have tillage. So it's an important process. But I'm afraid that if these court cases keep going, nobody will be able to afford to make it. Nobody will be able to afford the risk. That's what my concern is.
Well, they got television commercials now on TV from law firms. Boy, if you think you've got cancer or know somebody who's been exposed to glyphosate, everybody's been exposed to glyphosate, for God's sake, in one way or the other, especially here. Well, if you think you know somebody who has cancer or something, well, here, call the law firm. We'll get you some money. Well, this is one of those lawyer-driven things, the lawyers. They looked at Monsanto and how much money they had, and thought, well, we should be able to get in their pocket somehow.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh gosh, almighty! What do you see as the corn growers' main mission? I mean, we talked a little bit about you being in the corn growers and how long you've been in the corn growers. What does the corn growers try to do most of all?
Well, the first priority is create new demand for our product. We go overseas and get new countries to buy corn, and we work with the livestock industry for more livestock to eat more corn. And we even got a chemist on staff that develops new uses for corn, like industrial fluids and things like that.
Sure.
That's one of our priorities. That's the top priority. But we also work with policymakers and try to make the political policy not harmful, basically. That's another top priority that we do. It takes a lot of work.
Well, you got, the Washington, D.C. situation. You got so many people from so many different backgrounds. It's just crazy. And out of the blue now on Super Bowl commercials, now now they're saying one beer is saying, well, we don't allow corn syrup in our beer, so we're better than everybody else. It's just, I like football. I was watching. Where did this come from, for God's sake?
Yeah, it's just a marketing scheme, and a lot of them market schemes backfire on them. Not only that one, but even the organic food. Some of the marketing advertisements they're doing is getting so confusing that the food companies don't know what to do, don't know which road to travel, and it's just a marketing plan. It's nothing scientific. But
that's all it is.
That's the world we live in.
That is the world we live in. We've been talking with Kurt Mather. He's farms in the Logan area, and he's president of the Iowa Corn Growers. And this portion of the program brought to you by the Iowa Corn Growers Association. Kurt, it's been a great pleasure to meet you and talk with you. I hope we can talk again.
You bet. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Take care. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Mother's Day is next Sunday, and Pro Flowers makes it easy to order like a pro with this amazing deal. Send mom a dozen beautiful assorted roses for just $19.99. Order now, and you can double your roses and get a premium vase for an extra $9.99. That's 2 dozen roses and a premium vase. The only way to get this amazing deal is to go to proflowers.com. Click on the microphone in the upper right corner and enter code 4343. That's proflowers.com, code 4343.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Who would have thought there'd be entire aisles devoted to bottled water and that people would buy more water than pop? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters here in Fort Dodge. Spring water, drinking water, mineral water. There's so many choices, and we're proud to offer you them all. From our own refreshingly pure drinking water to ultra-pure Mountain Valley spring water, Blue Ribbon Pelham's is your complete water store.
You're listening to AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Thank you very much. Representative Ann Meyer is next. It's 4 o'clock.
He was plotting mass murder as revenge. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. That's the allegation laid out by federal prosecutors moments ago in a newly revealed California terror case. Fox's Gernal Scott has this live.
Lisa, authorities say Mark Stephen Domingo planned to detonate an improvised explosive device at a Long Beach rally to seek vengeance for acts against Muslims. U.S. Attorney Nick Hanna says Domingo sought to do as much damage as possible, buying 3-inch nails as part of his plan.
To be used in IEDs as shrapnel, specifically because the nails were long enough to penetrate the human body and puncture internal organs.
Undercover agents detailed Domingo's desire to attack cops, churches, and military bases as well. If convicted of supporting terrorism, he would face 15 years in prison, Lisa.
Gernal, the family of the accused gunman who killed one worshiper and wounded 3 at a California synagogue over the weekend, says they do not share his ideas, also expressing shock and deep sadness for the attack. Fox's William Lajeunesse reading from the family statement.
Our sadness pales in comparison to the grief and anguish our son has caused for so many people. He has killed and injured the faithful who were gathered in a sacred place on a sacred day.
And the FBI reportedly got a tip about a threat on social media just minutes before the shooting, too late to track down a suspect or location. He's back on the campaign trail.
I make no apologies. I am a union man. Period.
Former Vice President Joe Biden holding the first rally of his third run for president at a Union Hall in Pittsburgh.
If I'm going to be able to beat Donald Trump in 2020, it's going to happen here. It's going to happen here in Western Pennsylvania.
He says the middle class is hurting and that he has a plan to rebuild it, including a $15 minimum wage. Biden winning the first major union endorsement of the campaign from the International Association of Firefighters, prompting criticism from the president. This is Fox News.
At Dell, we know running a small business takes hard work. As a thank you, for all of Small Business Month, we're offering up to 45% off select computers with Intel Core processors. Plus, get additional savings when you call a Dell Small Business Technology Advisor. Call 877-BUY-DELL today. That's 877-BUY-DELL. Additional savings valid May 6th through 30th at 8 a.m. Eastern on select computers from customer calls Dell. Excludes Dell Canvas, PowerEdge T30, and select order codes.
Ah, the bull elk's bugle, one of nature's most wondrous sounds. That is not a bull elk, that's Kim. Her RV sewage tank is spewing all over her camper. Way, way out in the middle of elk country. Yep, there's an elk. And that's Kim. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, resurfacing in what the terror group claims is a new video released today.
Baghdadi has not been seen since 2014, when he proclaimed from Mosul the creation of a caliphate across parts of Syria and Iraq. In this new footage, he acknowledges defeat at Baghouz, the group's last stronghold in the region. It's not clear when the video was recorded, but ISIS say it was shot in April.
Fox's Benjamin Hall, U.S. intelligence analysts are reviewing that video to check its authenticity. Computer glitches for some airlines coast to coast today blamed on a software issue involving Sabre, the same vendor blamed for another recent outage. The company apologizing for the inconvenience and thanking passengers for their patience. This latest issue appears to be largely resolved at this hour. A famous TV personality is hospitalized.
Larry King is recuperating following a health scare last Thursday. King was scheduled to go into the hospital for an angioplasty because he was having difficulty breathing. However, prior to his hospitalization, the 85-year-old experienced angina, a type of chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart. So he went to the hospital early where doctors performed an angioplasty and inserted stents to reopen the previous bypass from 1987. King has a history of heart problems and has suffered 2 previous heart attacks. His doctors expect him to make a full recovery. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
Groundbreaking director John Singleton has died. A statement from his family is confirming it, saying that he changed the game and opened doors in Hollywood, a world that was just a few miles away from the neighborhood he grew up in South Central LA. John Singleton, again, a groundbreaking director, known, perhaps best known for Boys in the Hood, has died. His family just confirming that in a statement. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagon with the KVFD Afternoon News. Police are investigating a bizarre weekend shooting in Waterloo. Authorities say a woman was shot and killed as she was driving and a man in the vehicle was injured. Radio Iowa's Elwin Huffman reports.
The incident happened on the U.S. Highway 218 Expressway near the Cedar River Bridge around 2:30 a.m. Sunday. Waterloo police say it appears a single bullet struck the vehicle as it was going south in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. The bullet entered the vehicle and struck 2 of the 3 occupants, killing the female driver and injuring 1 of the 2 male passengers. According to police, the woman died at the scene. The man was taken to University of Iowa hospitals and clinics in Iowa City for treatment. Their names haven't been released. Authorities are asking for the public's help in the investigation. Anyone with information about the case should contact Waterloo Police. I'm Elwin Huffman, Radio Iowa, Waterloo.
The warmer weather usually means home sales start to pick up, but the president of the Iowa Associations of Realtors expects the flooding to have some impact. John Godey says some of the impact may have already been seen in the March sale numbers that were down.
I know there are all kinds of buyers and sellers and real estate agents that were preoccupied just trying to keep their communities from washing away.
He says it's natural that the flood response would have an impact.
There'd be fewer showings, fewer listings, fewer pendings just because of that.
Godey believes the impact is just starting.
I think it's going to be a dampening impact. I would be surprised that the numbers would come up. I think it would dampen up the next 2-3 months.
Iowans may be getting more door knocks and phone calls lately from businesses and individuals offering to help out with lawn care, tree trimming, and cleanup work. While many of them may be legitimate, Bess Ellenson with the Better Business Bureau says there are plenty of scammers out there looking to take advantage of you in the spring season.
We always recommend that people get everything that is supposed to be done in writing. So if something happens where you don't get the work that you want done, the work that they did falls through, then you have a little more grounds to fight.
Ellenson says one test of a company's legitimacy is finding out if they're insured as required by the state. If they're not, the business could be shady and you could end up paying one way or the other.
Let's say you've hired somebody to come trim some trees and they're on a ladder and they fall and they don't have insurance. You could be liable for that. You could be liable for their injuries.
She recommends getting multiple quotes for any job you want done and always bring the company out to your property in person to get the most accurate estimates. Research prospective yard companies at bbb.org. An Iowa State University study explores the changing attitudes of Iowa voters in recent presidential elections. Ann Oberhauser, an ISU professor of sociology and director of women's and gender studies, says there was a big shift between the majority of Iowa voters picking Democrat Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012 to backing Republican Donald Trump in 2016.
We were interested in kind of more local and county level aspects of that, and we kind of tuned in on rurality as an explanatory factor, race, ethnicity as also explanatory, and some other social indicators such as education.
Oberhauser says it's curious when so many rural, predominantly white counties that supported Obama for 2 straight election cycles made a dramatic shift to get behind Trump.
Iowa is becoming much more diverse in its population, particularly in urban areas and larger populated areas, but also in some of these rural areas. So I think as the demographics change in the state, we might begin to see some more shift in some of these attitudes and looking ahead to 2020.
The study is being published in the Sociological Quarterly. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 60. Northwesterly winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Lows dip down to about 43. Tonight, cloudy skies. Cloudy skies again tomorrow. Scattered thunderstorms likely. High of 51. Chance for scattered rain showers Wednesday and Thursday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 63.
Hi, I'm Jamie Brundage, owner of Historic Bruce Funeral Home. When you're planning the memorialization of your loved one, you're telling their story and sharing special memories with your family and friends. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, we're proud to help you celebrate the life of your loved one, and we're here to guide you with your selections as we help you and your family say goodbye in a way that's right for you. Our staff is committed to compassionate care and attention to detail. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
What's in store for your business this week at Staples?
The future of printing is here, and so are the savings.
The reinvented HP OfficeJet Pro printers are now at Staples.
They're smart, mobile, and secure.
So you can easily print, scan, and copy remotely from your mobile device.
And now at Staples, save up to 20% on the all-new HP OfficeJet Pro printers.
Plus, save up to $50 more in-store when you trade in your old printer.
Staples, there's a whole lot in store.
Ends 5/4/19. See store or staples.com/HP OfficeJet Pro to learn more.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
I love that you care about the earth and stuff, but
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. Yeah, we're going to tell the truth. Make it matter, man. We're never going to be boring. Jerry Schnurr not here today. He's off sulking with the other lawyers because somebody dared change the way judges are selected in the state of Iowa. Representative Ann Meyer is here. And first of all, Ann, great to have you here as always. And I'm glad that you got through your first term as a legislator unscathed. You don't seem scratched or beat up at all. So that's a good thing.
Yep. I in fact, I really enjoyed it. And what I say about it is, you know what, it was a very steep learning curve. And but at the end of the session, I was really comfortable running bills on the floor. And really that's, just defend your position a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the judges, I was one who was hectoring you all the time.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, and there were others, I'm sure, that felt that way. You're
and I will tell you, being on the show, I've told you, initially my opposition came from both sides of the aisle, and I have to support the people I represent. But every time, at Eggs and Issues and on the radio, I said, listen, if there's someone out there other than you, Mike, that does not want this done, call me, email me, let me know.
You said there was opposition, of course, but when it came down to the final vote, there was just you and a couple of other Republicans who
there were actually 7 of us.
7 of them.
Yeah. But, I will tell you what, though, I did get more after I was calling for more. I did get more. I got phone calls on the State House line. I got emails. So again, and I talked about this.
The Iowa State Bar worked hard on this. I mean, they're even online today talking about
are they?
Oh, yes. The Iowa State Bar Association site, either on Twitter or Facebook, is talking about how they worked so hard to either stop it altogether or scale it back as much as they could. They were bragging a little bit that they got it done today. So, Well,
they did. We did come. I think it was a really good compromise. I mean, so what it does, initially they were removing all the lawyers from the process. It was going to be, we talked about this, it was going to be 2 selections from the House Majority Leader. The House Minority Leader got 2 sections. Same thing with the Senate. Minority and Majority Leaders each got 2 selections. Again, removing all of the legal profession from the selection committee.
Right.
Then a few other compromises came into place in the last few weeks. So I think early last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, it came down to, okay, we're going to keep 4 lawyers on the commission, and then we're going to go with 1 selection from each minority and majority leader. Said again, it'd be one thing if those leaders were all lawyers. They're not. And we don't know what's going to be in the future either. I could conceivably be in leadership, and who would I pick? I mean, I wouldn't have any. So anyway,
well, lawyers, plenty of lawyers. I'm sure they all contacted you.
When it came down to, we're putting 8 lawyers back on the commission, and the only real change was going to give the governor, regardless of what governor it is. Obviously, right now it's Governor Reynolds. She was going to get the 9th pick instead of the Supreme Court justices.
Right.
And you know what? I think that's fair. And Senator and Representative Sexton talked about this, about accountability, having the people have a little bit of accountability in this. And I think that's a good compromise, because whichever governor we have, that governor is elected by the people. So that gives the people a little bit more accountability. So that was definitely something. I think it was not a great, huge change, but it is a change. And I'm good with that. And my people calling me were good with that. So
I do not believe in an unaccountable to the people branch of government, period. It offends the idea of democracy. I just don't believe in unaccountable government. And I think in the future, the courts will be accountable. Not this time around, and the federal courts certainly aren't as of yet. But in the future, I think people will understand that. I really wasn't understanding, and I don't expect you to tell me necessarily, I wasn't understanding the ferocity of the opposition to what I considered minor changes. I didn't really think it was that big a deal.
right, this final.
No, not this. Well, this
Oh.
last, the end result here, the bill that passed, I really don't think it was a big deal at all.
No.
But I didn't think the first bill that came forward was that big a deal. What were you hearing for as far as complaints were concerned? Or were you hearing slogans like, oh, we have a wonderful court system, let's not screw it up, and all these other things? I mean, if we had that great a process in the first place, 38 states would do as we do. As a matter of fact, they don't.
And the letters that were not form letters, the letters from the people in Fort Dodge, the chief opposition, the people that wrote their own letters, we don't want to politicize the courts. And you know what? Putting politicians in charge of it is politicizing the courts. So that was the chief opposition from the people that I heard from. That was the chief opposition to the initial bill. And the second bill, or the second amendment, where it was going to be 4 and 4 from the politicians, 4 from the lawyers. Still, I think that was a little political, because the governor does have so many selections that are political on her side. There were already politics in it. What Representative Sexton said is true, and what Representative Holt said is true. There is already politics in there. This just, I just thought, again, removing the law profession from the judicial selection, it just doesn't make sense. So that's where the people that weren't just sending out form letters, that's where their opposition was.
I was surprised that so many people rallied to the side of lawyers. I think something was going on there. Lawyers and used car salesmen, they're usually grouped into the same. As far as it comes to professions that are respected, it's usually, yeah. And sometimes the lawyers lose to used car salesmen. Little surveys are done, or which profession do you trust the most, used car salesmen or lawyers? Sometimes the used car salesmen win that one.
You know what's funny? You would think that might be the case.
Yeah.
Across the board, but we have several lawyers. We have several lawyers in our caucus, and they were all supporting the first round, the first of taking the lawyers out. Yeah. So that
what was their reasoning, or did you ask them?
Oh, yeah, I asked them, and they would tell me that just stories that they heard about the commission, which they're lawyers, so I assume that they are hearing correct stories. They said that sometimes the lawyers on the commission would be swayed by the justice who sat on the who was the third, essentially the tie-breaking vote. That was one thing. And then there was another issue that rural lawyers, if you're in a rural community, if you're in Fort Dodge, you're in Polk County, you're in Johnson County, maybe you've got a better chance of getting 50 people to sign a petition so you can actually submit an application to be considered for nomination. These rural lawyers, they don't work with that many rural lawyers. There aren't that many rural lawyers in those rural districts. And so another thing that this bill did was bring the amount of signatures required to submit your application down to 10 instead of 50. And that's much more doable.
I really think I just have, a standard, a bar that I set for myself, and that anything that Nevin Mulholland agrees with, I automatically disagree with. So there we go.
Well, that truly is not how I feel. I feel Nevin is a very, very smart man, and he's, I mean, he's got.
You didn't need to deny that. You didn't need to take Nevin's side. I don't think he took me seriously. Well, that's what's happened now. It's over and done with. So, what are you most proud of from your session? Your first session.
I think that the thing that I'm most proud of that happened this session was the establishment of the children's mental health system.
Really?
So now we have funding to where we've eliminated the wait list, number one, for kids. I think there were 600 to 800 on that list. So we're eliminating that wait list. And then number two, we've established a hotline, if you will. It'll be a one central number, a phone number that parents can call and get the services, be directed to the services in their area to help their children right now. It brought a lot of services together in a central area. It's going to follow the mental health regions, just like the adult system did. But it is not finished. I mean, this was a great framework, and we still need to work on it and fill it in. We need to make sure that, and we have allocated more funding to it this year, and we will continue to do that. That it really is the thing I'm most proud of this session, because I think I told you when I was knocking on doors, that's the mental health issues were the number one thing.
Oh, I would say I definitely am an advocate for mental health treatment. I think I hope you and I talked about it when I first met you before you actually had decided to run or not. But no, I told that story about my son's friend who was a combat veteran down in Des Moines who couldn't get help.
Right.
And he needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is, a combat veteran who's trained in automatic weapons, and he's running around deeply disturbed, and he can't get any mental health treatment, for God's sake. What do I just was appalled.
We've done we did a couple other things, and I think I talked about this before, but one of the bills that I'm most proud of managing was the medication assisted treatment plan for substance abuse. So when a person comes in for substance abuse, and they may be a Medicaid recipient, they may be on a Medicaid plan, and which is a low cost, in that's to aid the poor. Medicaid aids the poor, Medicare aids the elderly. So anyhow, if they come in for treatment, and a lot of times when we're treating substance abuse or opioid abuse, they need a medication, and they need it. If they're coming in for treatment, they want treatment right away.
Yeah.
And some of these medications had a 72-hour pre-authorization period.
Mm-hmm.
This eliminated the pre-authorization need for 5 categories of medications, which is huge. So you come in for treatment, we're going to start treatment right away.
Did you have much experience with mental health treatment when you were a nurse? I mean, did you?
No.
No. Okay.
Bottom line is no. I've always been an adult healthcare nurse. I worked in ICU. I worked I started out in a post-surgical unit. I worked ICU for a while, 7 or 8 years. From there, I went to a home care agency in Detroit that I took care of post cardiac bypass patients at home. So they'd have their surgery, they'd be discharged. I would initially go into the house probably 5 days after surgery is when they were discharged. We'd talk about medications, we'd talk about diet, we'd talk about exercise, how to get back on a good plan to prevent this from happening again, number one. But also, there are a lot of wounds when we you've got the big chest incision. And then back then we didn't do too many internal mammary arteries. We took vessels from the legs. And so these patients had incisions up and down their legs. And usually cardiac patients have a problem with lower leg circulation. So there'd be a lot of wound issues as well.
Well, the famous director, John Singleton, was it's surprising you say that. Just coincidentally, you say that. He was on vacation and he had a lot of leg pain, and he's had a stroke now, and he's in very bad shape. But he was complaining a lot about his legs hurt
after a certain period of walking.
Yeah, walking, and he was on vacation. I suppose he was having fun and doing this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, he didn't think to go to a physician, I guess, and he's in bad shape right now.
And back then, the way we rated that was how far could you walk before you started developing pain. So what was happening was the muscles in the legs required oxygen, just like heart requires oxygen. And when you would walk a certain distance, then that you'd start getting the pain in your leg, just like you would get chest pain. That's called claudication. That's the technical term for that. So however long it would take
Claudication, did you?
Claudication. And yeah. So that was a lot of those patients had that problem too. In addition to having the cardiac circulation problems, they also had lower legs. When you don't have circulation in your lower legs and you have incisions, longer healing periods because you don't have enough oxygen to heal those incisions. So then when we moved here, I worked for Iowa Heart for a bit. And of course, that was with adult patients as well.
Sure.
And then I went to Iowa Central and I've been teaching since then. So no, I've always had adult, and it's always been, like I said, intensive care, and then cardiac were my main areas that I worked.
All right.
Never worked pulmonary I guess I worked pulmonary in the hospital with my husband. When he was seeing pulmonary patients in the ICU, I would.
Was that here in town or somewhere else?
It was not. That was in Michigan. We met at Garden City Hospital back in Garden City, Michigan. He was a resident, and I was his nurse trainer.
And you swooped him off his feet there.
And I will tell you, every nurse that works with him, except the ones that are very close to him, they realize his sometimes demanding nature, but he's very good to nurses. I mean, he is very respectful, and he knows what they go through. And I'd like to take some credit for that.
Well, somebody in his line of work, it's not, in all due respect to auto mechanics, but if an auto mechanic makes a mistake, he can correct it, Okay, your car's fixed, and the guy comes back in 2 days and says, no, it isn't. Well, the guy can take care of it, but it doesn't probably work that way in healthcare.
And I'll tell you, this is totally, it's slightly related, but it's kind of a funny joke. Dr. Begley, our cardiac surgeon that retired from Iowa Heart a bit ago, he used to say, what's the difference between an auto mechanic and a heart surgeon? And we both fix things. But I don't think you fix the engine while it's running, do you?
There's a big difference right there. So you enjoyed your first session?
I really did. Yes.
Okay.
It was very stressful to start with. Again, it was a steep learning curve. I was assigned bills. Some of my bills were just in areas, honestly, that I had not had experience in before, like transportation. My first 3 bills I was assigned were in transportation and economic development. But, I did a lot of research. I worked with a lot of the caucus staff and learned a lot about that. And then human resources, my bills were I was a lot more comfortable with the human resources bills. So it was great. I loved it. I was telling you, everyone in the last few weeks, I think, looks forward to coming home. I'm sure their families all look forward to getting home. But on our last day, Saturday, it was kind of like the last day of school. I was a little bit sad. I was a little bit sad saying goodbye to everybody.
Well, good for you. Good for you. And I'm glad you're down there for us. There'll be one more Eggs and Issues. Do you plan on attending that or not?
Yes. So
that's this Saturday.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And Jim's conference goes until Friday night. So I'll just make sure that we get out of there by 6:30 and get home.
All right.
Yep.
Representative Ann Meyer has been our guest. Thank you, Ann.
Thanks.
All right, 4:30, excuse me.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. News is next.
What does building a better bank look like? It starts with building Capital One cafes, warm, inviting places that feel nothing like a typical bank, where you can open an account with no fees or minimums in 5 minutes, and you'll always find people ready to help you, not sell you. Welcome to Banking Reimagined. What's in your wallet?
For consumers only. Offered by Capital One and a member FDIC. Cafes available in select locations. Copyright 2018 Capital One.
Are you more than $10,000 in debt? Feel like you're on a never-ending treadmill, staying in one place and never getting ahead with those minimum payments? You feel like there's no way out? Don't let the credit card companies bully you anymore. There are programs in place to help you get free of your debt, and you don't have to pay the entire amount you owe. The program at Total Financial Freedom can help you get debt-free in months instead of decades. Get off the debt treadmill and stop the harassment. Get free of credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and medical bills. Call now at 800-533-6605 for free information. For about 10 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands. They're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, too. Get off the endless cycle without having to declare bankruptcy. You'll have the right to settle your debt for a mere fraction of what you owe. Call Total Financial now at 800-533-6605. That's 800-533-6605.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagon with the KVFD Afternoon News. Police are investigating a bizarre weekend shooting in Waterloo. Authorities say a woman was shot and killed as she was driving, and a man in the vehicle was injured. Radio Iowa's Elwin Huffman reports.
The incident happened on the U.S. Highway 218 Expressway near the Cedar River Bridge around 2:30 a.m. Sunday. Waterloo police say it appears a single bullet struck the vehicle as it was going south in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. The bullet entered the vehicle and struck 2 of the 3 occupants, killing the female driver and injuring 1 of the 2 male passengers. According to police, the woman died at the scene. The man was taken to University of Iowa hospitals and clinics in Iowa City for treatment. Their names haven't been released. Authorities are asking for the public's help in the investigation. Anyone with information about the case should contact Waterloo Police. I'm Elwin Huffman, Radio Iowa, Waterloo.
The warmer weather usually means home sales start to pick up, but the president of the Iowa Associations of Realtors expects the flooding to have some impact. John Godey says some of the impact may have already been seen in the March sale numbers that were down.
I know there are all kinds of buyers and sellers and real estate agents that were preoccupied just trying to keep their communities from washing away.
He says it's natural that the flood response would have an impact.
There'd be fewer showings, fewer listings, fewer pendings just because of that.
Godey believes the impact is just starting.
I think it's going to be a dampening impact. I would be surprised that the numbers would come up. I think it would dampen up the next 2-3 months.
Iowans may be getting more door knocks and phone calls lately from businesses and individuals offering to help out with lawn care, tree trimming, and cleanup work. While many of them may be legitimate, Bess Ellenson with the Better Business Bureau says there are plenty of scammers out there looking to take advantage of you in the spring season.
We always recommend that people get everything that is supposed to be done in writing. So if something happens where you don't get the work that you want done, the work that they did falls through, then you have a little more grounds to fight.
Ellenson says one test of a company's legitimacy is finding out if they're insured as required by the state. If they're not, the business could be shady and you could end up paying one way or the other.
Let's say you've hired somebody to come trim some trees and they're on a ladder and they fall and they don't have insurance. You could be liable for that. You could be liable for their injuries.
She recommends getting multiple quotes for any job you want done and always bring the company out to your property in person to get the most accurate estimates. Research prospective yard companies at bbb.org. An Iowa State University study explores the changing attitudes of Iowa voters in recent presidential elections. Ann Oberhauser, an ISU professor of sociology and director of women's and gender studies, says there was a big shift between the majority of Iowa voters picking Democrat Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012 to backing Republican Donald Trump in 2016.
We were interested in kind of more local and county level aspects of that, and we kind of tuned in on rurality as an explanatory factor, Race, ethnicity is also explanatory, and some other social indicators such as education.
Oberhauser says it's curious when so many rural, predominantly white counties that supported Obama for 2 straight election cycles made a dramatic shift to get behind Trump.
Iowa is becoming much more diverse in its population, particularly in urban areas and larger populated areas, but also in some of these rural areas. So I think as the demographics change in the state, we might begin to see some more shift in some of these attitudes and looking ahead to 2020.
The study is being published in the Sociological Quarterly. I'm Alex Benzgal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. May corn up 3/4 at $3.52. July up a half a penny at $3.61 3/4. September up a half a cent at $3.70, and December up a half a penny at $3.81 1/4. May soybeans down 6 1/4 to $8.47 1/2. July down 6 1/4 at $8.60 3/4. August down 6 1/2 at $8.66 3/4. November down 7 to $8.80 3/4. May wheat closed down 8 1/4 at $4.26 3/4. Soybean meal down $2.70 a ton at $2.97.20. April live cattle up 22 at $124.77. June down 25 to $114.80. May feeder cattle down 55 at $143.70. August down 177 to $151.07. May lean hogs down 222 to $84.77. June down 70 to $88.05. I'm Dwayne Murley.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. It's 4:35. Let's check the weather forecast here for you. It's 62 degrees right now. Sunny today. Maybe it'll get to be 63. Overnight, 10% chance of showers, not very much. Mostly cloudy overnight with a low of 44. Tomorrow, some thunderstorms with a high only of 48. On Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high of 58. Thursday, a chance of showers. Sunny with a high of 62. Friday, sunny with a high of 65. Saturday, sunny with a high of 70. And Sunday, it'll be partly sunny with a high of 64 degrees. Right now, once again in town, 62 degrees. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Esther Kendall has died. Services for Esther Kendall were this morning at 10:30 at St. Olaf Lutheran Church here in town. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
From the Fox Business Network, stocks closing in the green as earnings and strong consumer spending lifted the major averages today. S&P 500 and NASDAQ closing at record levels, with the Dow closing up 11 points, the NASDAQ up 15, S&P 500 up 3. And shares of Google's parent company Alphabet falling in the extended session after reporting first quarter revenue that missed Wall Street expectations. And Spotify hitting 100 million paying subscribers in the first quarter. However, its stock closed slightly lower as its earnings report showed that the streaming music service still has a tough road ahead to turn a profit. And it soon won't be impossible to find Burger King's plant-based burgers. Restaurant Brands International, Burger King's parent, says that its month-long test of the Impossible Whopper at 59 restaurants in St. Louis has gone so well that it will start to test it in additional markets with the intention of nationwide distribution by the end of the year. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Hillary Barsky.
Hey, my friend's retail store was the victim of IoT password theft.
Yep. Cyber criminals are taking over security cameras, payment systems, and other IoT devices by exploiting vulnerabilities.
What if they target us and our dispersed network?
We're secured with Barracuda. We have advanced firewalls for our sites, enhanced security for our cloud infrastructure, and total email protection.
Such a relief.
Protect your business at Barracuda.com. Barracuda, your journey secured.
What does building a better bank look like? It starts with building Capital One cafes, warm, inviting places that feel nothing like a typical bank, where you can open an account with no fees or minimums in 5 minutes. And you'll always find people ready to help you, not sell you. Welcome to Banking Reimagined. What's in your wallet?
For consumers only. Offered by Capital One NA, member FDIC. Cafes available in select locations. Copyright 2018 Capital One.
And now, a quick comparison from Grasshopper. When a client calls, what do you want them to hear? Your personal voicemail?
Hey, you've reached Greg's cell phone. I'm away right now, obviously. Leave a message and maybe I'll get back to you.
Or something a little more buttoned up, courtesy of Grasshopper.
Thanks for calling Green Landscaping. To make an appointment, dial 1. For billing, dial 2. To speak with Greg Smith, dial
There's
3.
no contest. Put your best voice forward with Grasshopper, the virtual phone system for small business. Try it free at grasshopper.com.
Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
Oh, why not just cremate me when I'm gone?
Sounds simple, doesn't it? However, there are many options to consider when cremation is chosen. From simple to detailed, we at Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services can help you create a unique commemoration.
Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
Hurry into Ashley Home Store for the lowest prices of the season. Come in today for prices you won't see again. Bar stools starting at only $50, beds starting at $199, and sofas starting at $299. Or get 0% interest for 72 months. The lowest prices of the season have arrived and are happening right now, only at America's #1 furniture and mattress store, Ashley Home Store. This is home. Offer subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, and we are going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. And, of course, Dean Stanzel is many things. Dr. Dean Stanzel of Southern Methodist University is many things, but boring is not one of them. So how are you, Dean?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael. How are you?
Dr. Stanzel is also with the O'Neill Center at SMU. Please explain the O'Neill Center.
Oh, sure. The O'Neill Center for Global Markets and Freedom is a research center in the Cox Business School at SMU in Dallas, and we were set up by one of our alums, William O'Neill, who also happens to be the founder of Investors Business Daily newspaper. And we study the impact of competitive market forces on freedom and prosperity in the global economy. Our website is o'neillcenter.org. That's ONEIL.
All right. Dr. Stanzel, by the way, is a libertarian, as you will shortly find out if you haven't heard him before, even though he's been on this radio station for many years now. Last week, I mentioned to Dr. Stanzel that I enjoyed George Will over the years. So he has come back with another George F. Will piece today, this time from the Washington Post. And you can find the entire article on my Facebook page at AM 1400 KVFD. And George rarely does this. But he is talking about decadence. Yes, that's right. The reserved, scholarly George Will is talking about decadence. And he is making a reference to decadence in relationship to America's borrowing from the future. How significant a threat is deficit spending?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Certainly, one of the key things that I think he's trying to point out, and others as well, is that we're kind of taking it for granted, right? We're doing more and more of this, and it's become just standard operating procedure. And if you think about the way we used to operate, it was if we had to borrow for things like investments, infrastructure, that sort of thing, you would do that because you could argue there's some sort of return that's going to come out of that'll justify having to pay interest in order to fund it. But now we're at the point where we basically are paying interest to fund just everyday spending, the payment of entitlement program benefits and things like that.
And I keep hearing, especially about Social Security, that Social Security is in trouble. Is it in fact?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so every year they come out with their trustees report that gives you basically an estimated date when it's going to run out of money. The latest, I think, was Medicare in 2026, Social Security in 2035. This just came out last week, I think. It was pretty recently. And so, I'd call that, a looming crisis. 2026 isn't far off. And ultimately, that's really what George Will is talking about here when he talks about all this deficit spending, because about 2/3 of the budget, close to 3/4 now, goes to entitlement programs, things that in a sense have been put on autopilot, where the elected officials don't have to vote on them every year. Just the spending is based upon how many people meet the criteria of the program. And so when they get together to talk about the budget every year, they're really dealing with a really small piece of the pie. And so it does make it certainly more challenging for those who want to rein in spending and shrink the size of government, because you've got a whole big piece of the pie that's essentially untouchable.
Why is a smaller government a positive good?
Well, because the bigger the government, the more of your money goes to politicians, and the more of our resources as a whole, as a society, are distributed and determined. That their use is determined by political means rather than private means. And certainly, Milton Friedman had a little story he would tell about basically 4 different ways to spend money. Right, the one is that you spend someone else's. Or you spend your own money on yourself, right? So you're careful about how much you spend and what you buy. Now, if you spend your own money on someone else, you're careful about how much you spend, but not really as careful about what you buy. And then if you spend someone else's money on you, you're not really careful about how much you spend, but careful about what you buy. And the end of the story is, if you're spending someone else's money on someone else, you don't really care how much you spend, and you don't really care what you're buying. Right, and that's essentially the political process. That's government for us, and we have lots of examples. I think on Tax Day a couple weeks back, we talked about some of these examples of waste, fraud, and abuse throughout the federal budget, and so these things means that our money is getting spent less wisely. We're getting less bang for the buck, so to speak. And so the less of that stuff we can do, in other words, the smaller government is, the smaller the budget is, the better off we all are in terms of our ability to get our needs met in a way that's satisfactory to us.
Dr. Dean Stanzel is our guest. He's an economics professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. I don't know how we got Bernie Sanders into the conversation here, but George Will did it right away. Again, this is an article Dr. Stanzel sent me by, one of my favorite columnists, and apparently Dean likes him as well. And it's on my Facebook page at AM 1400 KBFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. Bernie Sanders, who revealed himself to be a multimillionaire not too long ago, could not possibly explain how he would pay for Medicare for all. The remarkable thing, and I'm quoting from the article, the remarkable thing, however, is the quaint expectation that any political person should explain how he or she would align proposed expenditures and actual revenues. For decades, the implicit answer has always been the same. They won't even pretend to align them. And I've heard Elizabeth Warren, I've heard others, certainly that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, talking about doing all these wonderful things, and they haven't a clue where the money's going to come from. Don't have any idea. It's just something they say that sounds good to people, to certain people.
Sure. Well, at least some of those folks, I think Elizabeth Warren is an example of this, does say that, in part at least, we're going to get the money from making the rich and the corporations pay what they are referring to as their fair share. Right, so there's at least some element of a source of revenue there. Now, it's not realistic in my view at all, and it's not particularly good policy in my view. But there is this presumption amongst some of those people like her that, well, we'll just tax the rich and the corporations more, and then we'll use that to give free college to everybody and free health care to everybody, and everything will turn out just fine. Allegedly, right? That's their words.
Wow, that's Grimm's fairy tales, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I guess they'll seize all the wealth in the United States. I don't know. There is a piece quoted in this article that Dr. Stanzel and I are talking about. Welfare and Debt, a Moynihan Assessment by Chris DeMuth of the Hudson Institute. Let me guess, you know Chris DeMuth, don't you?
I've heard of Chris.
You've heard of him. Okay. This is, of course, this has to include the famous Democratic senator from New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who's been dead for many years, but his influence is still felt. He delivered an address called The Moral Dimensions of a $2 Trillion Debt. Moral dimensions. I like this. What have we got to say? Do you agree with a Democratic senator from New York who was really seen as a liberal in his time?
Right. Well, the ironic thing is that a $2 trillion debt, I mean, that's tiny. We have a $1 trillion deficit, right? Remember, debt is just the accumulation of all the deficits. We've got huge debt now. And the point is, even for a Democrat at that time, what is today considered tiny, there was a moral dimension to it. Now, Moynihan was a pretty solid kind of fiscal deficit hawk, so he's not particularly, he's kind of somewhat uncommon in that sense amongst his party, but sure, there's a moral dimension to this, and the moral dimension is that we're not borrowing to build roads or something like that maybe will have some payoff. I don't think the payoff is great, but nevertheless, we're borrowing to give money to retirees and military veterans and businesses that have political influence. And lower income people, we're spreading the money around, and farmers in Iowa and sugar farmers in Florida and oil people in Texas. Most everyone's getting a piece here of that money, but the people who are going to end up paying for it are either too young to vote or don't care about voting, or they're not even born yet, right? Because these debts are going to be paid off over many years by people who aren't reaping the benefits of the spending that the debt is financing.
Dr. Dean Stans is our guest. He's with Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, and the O'Neill Center. There are borrowed benefits. What does borrowed benefits mean?
Well, I think what he's trying to say here is that the benefits that are occurring today are being borrowed from the future generations, right? And those guys are going to pay them back. And so, again, rather than borrowing to finance stuff that presumably, if you have better infrastructure, that pays dividends over time. These, a retirement payment to a Social Security payment to a retired person doesn't really offer any benefits to someone who's not even alive yet.
Elizabeth Warren, by the way, has proposed free college. Now, that sounds good to me. There is another piece here called Warren's Free College Time Machine, the Free College Time Machine. Elizabeth Warren is a very capable person, but she really isn't catching fire out there. And maybe that's regrettable, and maybe that isn't. I think she's got some arguments to make. However, the last couple of times she was here in Iowa, she looked desperate. And she was yelling at the crowd. Never a good picture for really someone who spent her life in the academy. I have a feeling that she's just a scholar. She's a scholar, and she's used to conducting dignified debates and lectures and those sorts of things. But now she's yelling at people. And this is one of the things that she's yelling about. Certainly, college could be made more affordable. We don't want college to be out of the reach of ordinary people or deserving people of very minimal means. What can we do here, or what do you see with Elizabeth Warren?
So she's not the only one out there, I suppose, saying that college should be made free, and going further, that we should cancel student loan debt for people with incomes above a certain amount. This is all very problematic in the sense that by doing what they're arguing, number one, that you can't make it free, right? You can make the price zero, but there's still a huge cost to providing college education. Now, some of that money, a lot of it, arguably, is getting wasted on things like lazy rivers and fancy, waterfront dorms and student centers that these universities are using to compete with each other to attract students. But ultimately, there is some cost. Sure, we could cut costs at the college level in terms of the spending that these universities are engaging in, but you can't make it free. It just doesn't. Where's the money going to come from is the issue. And of course, it's back to the other issue we were talking about earlier, that they're just saying, well, we're just going to tax the rich and the corporations and it'll all work out. But it's not quite that simple. But moreover, here's part of the problem. So with the making it free part. So you're encouraging people to do something they wouldn't otherwise have done, right? And for a lot of people, spending those 4 years at a university, or 5, depending on how long it takes them, right, is not the right decision for them. It doesn't work out for them. They don't gain from it what they should, and they would have been better off having gone into the workforce immediately after high school, or gone to maybe a technical college of some sort to learn a specific trade rather than to to read philosophy and literature and that sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but in some cases it doesn't really give you a specific marketable job skill. And so part of the thing is that we're getting people off track from where they should be by making this assumption that there's one solution that's right for everyone, and that is go and get a 4-year degree.
I don't know if that's the only. We've been talking around here of the need for skilled workforce, electricians, plumbers, all sorts of things.
Sure. So the more people you funnel into a 4-year college, the fewer of those you're going to get, right? Because they're not teaching that at University of Iowa and at SMU where I am. They're not teaching people how to be plumbers and electricians. And some of those jobs can be quite lucrative in terms of the pay relative to the education level, and so those aren't bad career choices for a lot of people. Those are good choices.
Well, there's nothing worse, I don't think. I haven't heard of too many worse stories than, and I know people who have done this, young people who have done this. I know their parents. They sent their kids to school for a social services degree for 4 years, spent $100,000, and they're a lot of money in debt when they get out of school for a $35,000 a year job.
Right.
While an electrician with a little experience and they're making $60,000 with a great benefit package.
Right.
And they can start their own businesses. Exactly. I don't know what social service majors private business future looks like, but
right. Yeah, probably not as bright. The other thing that part of what's motivating this, I think, for these people proposing free college is an inequality kind of issue, right? We want to give those with lower incomes who maybe, like in my case, neither of my parents went to college, people who are in that sort of childhood experience, give them the opportunity to go to college like those with a lot of money can do. But think about how this would work. They can't force private colleges like SMU, where I teach, to make tuition free. I don't think they can do that. They can't force private businesses to give away their product for free, right? So it would only be the public university. And what do you think is going to happen to inequality when the public universities are giving it away for free? So they're getting all the people who can't afford to go to or maybe can't get admitted to the private selective elite universities, and it's going to totally bifurcate create this kind of bipolar distribution of college students, essentially of college graduates, and it's going to make those degrees from the public universities that are free worth less than they are now, and certainly worth less than the ones from the private universities. I don't think it's a workable solution, and I think it'll have a lot of unintended consequences that actually harm the people they're trying to help.
When we talk about businesses giving away free, I don't know if this is a comparable historical reference or not. You're too young to remember this, Dean, but Patty Hearst was kidnapped many, many years ago in the early 1970s, and she was the daughter of very, very wealthy people. They owned Hearst newspapers. Well, her kidnappers were radical revolutionaries who believed in free this and free that and free everything. And one of the prices for the release of Patty Hearst was that her family set up food trucks in this parking lot and clothing trucks and these sorts of things and give away free stuff to the people, because these revolutionaries, the Symbionese Liberation Army, were very interested in free stuff giving to the people. Well, the Hearst family did that, and a mob showed up, wrecked the place, and ran off with all the stuff.
Holy cow.
It was on television. I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were all set up. They had this nice little distribution center. They were going to determine need and all this. Didn't work. People just tore it up. They just ran off with it. It was just incredible. And I've not been inclined to give away free stuff ever since. I guess I was young then, but even then I thought, well, maybe free stuff, not the best idea I ever heard.
Right. It doesn't always work the way it might seem it would on paper. One of the things that they mentioned in this Wall Street Journal editorial on Warren's college plan is that for every new dollar a college receives in subsidized loans, colleges raise tuition 60 cents. The point being that not only not making it free, but even the effort that we've gone into over the years to expand the subsidies to colleges in terms of these loans and things, the colleges are basically saying, okay, now I've got a license to raise my price, right? So the tuition, of course, is going up way above the rate of inflation. The price of books is going way up, and one way to rein that in is to stop subsidizing. Anytime you subsidize something, it's basic supply and demand. You're going to get this increased demand that's going to shift the demand curve up and drive the price up, and we're seeing exactly that with college tuition.
All right, Dr. Dean Stansel is our guest. We just have a couple of minutes left, but I'm not going to spend the whole time here bashing the Democrats. When we talk deficits, I mean, we do have a Republican in the White House. We've had Republican presidents fairly regularly over the years, and we still have deficits. I mean, Dick Cheney loved benefits or deficits, and a lot of people thought Dick was the president rather than George W. Bush, but that's another story.
Go ahead, sir.
No, that's my question.
I saw this. I meant to send you this article. There was like this graph of debt, how much the U.S. debt grew under each president. I'll see you here in a minute. But it was so Trump, it's $4.8 trillion, and this was from last fall, so it's not up to date. Obama was like 8.6, George W. Bush 5.8. Clinton 1.4. Point being that after just a couple of years, Trump is over halfway to what Obama had in 8 years, and almost as much as Bush had in 8 years. So yeah, it's not a partisan thing really, because it's Congress and the president working together. We do tend to blame or give credit to the president more than we probably should, but it's happening. It's getting bigger and bigger, and it's a problem that they don't seem the administration willing or interested in addressing.
Well, we've had deficits Bill Clinton left a budget surplus, and George W. wrecked the sucker. We shouldn't.